Okay, can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So just very briefly, I wanted to give a review of my background and my experiences in fitness and health. And so, sorry, play with my mouse here. So I started in 2005. I weighed about 200 pounds, and then here's my before and after picture. I really wanted to lose weight, and so I started, doing my own research, and I took it really seriously, and I ended up losing 70 pounds. And I put this up here so that people can kind of get an idea of, what I went through, because I've been there and I've experienced it, and so I know the struggle, I guess, of trying to figure out how to work out and how to lose weight and just trying to be healthy overall. And so from that experience, it led me to where I am today, which is the health educator for the Great Plains Good Health and Wellness. I have an MPH, and I'm also a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, fitness nutrition specialist, and a behavior change specialist. I spent quite a few years working as a personal trainer in like different gyms and like 24-hour fitness, downsize fitness, crunch fitness, kind of just all over the place. And I've also worked for a few of the diabetes prevention programs in Pine Ridge. And then so from those experiences, what I've seen and what I've learned is that there's a major need for our communities. Our tribal communities have a limited access to fitness professionals. They have a limited access to fitness centers. And then even when we do have them, there's just not enough, trainers or people that have that education who can provide, fitness plans or training for everybody. And so that led me to wanting to create this guide, just based off of the experiences, as well as I've seen, in the past, I've seen a lot of people go out and pick up a workout DVD that's just too advanced. And it has them doing like burpees or like high knee exercises, or, just basically exercises that their bodies aren't ready for. And then, it eventually leads to like injury, or they quit working out because they're intimidated, or they get burnt out because the workouts are too hard. And then so in our guide, so in our guide, the slide before this was the cover page of the guide. In pages 2 through 5, we have, like our sources and our disclaimer, our introduction from our team, and then our table of contents. And so, it's just important. That's why we put the disclaimer that anytime you want to start a fitness program, it's always best to consult your doctor, especially if you have any chronic illnesses or physical limitations. And so the first part of this guide, it goes into the definitions between physical activity and exercise. And so physical activity means any body movement that you do that results in energy expenditure. So it could be anything like washing your car, gardening, shoveling snow, just basically anything. And then so exercise is actually a subset of physical activity, and it's a planned or structured program, and it's often used to target a certain goal or a specific goal, something like losing weight, training for a marathon, training to be stronger, or even people that do yoga who want to increase their flexibility. And then on the next page, it discusses the health benefits that are associated with being physically active. And I'm just going to point out a few of the major ones, since these are the ones that are most prominent in our communities. And so it prevents type 2 diabetes, it prevents heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, it blood circulation and reduces clot formation. it improves mood, quality of life, and it reduces anxiety and depression. And so before you even get started wanting to write a structured fitness program or even having one, you want to kind of set a goal for yourself. And so page 8 talks about the importance of goal setting and using the SMART acronym. And so using the SMART method has been found to help people be more successful in meeting their goals. For the S, it means specific. So you want to make sure it's clear and easy to understand, and it's specific. It's a specific goal. M is for measurable. So you want to, figure out how and when you're going to measure your progress or your changes. And so, like, simply stating that you want to get healthier really isn't specific or measurable. So you'd want to say something like, I want to jog for 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week, until I can jog for the entire 10 minutes or something, just something real simple like that. And then for A, you want to make sure it's attainable. So is this something I can achieve? And then you also have to remember like your personal limitations. So don't say like, oh, you're going to walk outside every day, knowing that South Dakota weather, it's going to blizzard one week and then be 70 degrees the next. So you just want to take into consideration any obstacles that you might face and then kind of plan for how you're going to overcome them. And then for R, is this goal realistic? You want to make sure that it's healthy for you and that it's realistic. You can't say like, I want to run a marathon, within the first month when you've actually never really ran before or exercised. And then the last one is T, and that stands for time. And so you want to set a time frame for your goal. And this is, if it's a huge goal, you can try breaking it down into smaller time frames, just so it doesn't become overwhelming. And then on this next page here, on page 9, this is where we start thinking about how to create a program. And then so the first step is if you think of it like building a house. So you want to build a strong foundation first, right? Our bodies need to build like a strong, stable foundation, and that's basically your core muscles and your support muscles in order to face any unexpected demands. So I showed a picture of a guy slipping here, or you can even think about somebody who steps in like a pothole. The stronger your foundation, the less likely you'll get injured. And this is also something that I see in a lot of like high school athletes. You see a lot of torn ACLs, sprained or broken ankles, and just, a big part of that is because a lot of the time they're missing that vital step of building their support muscles or their core, and basically just that step of building their foundation. And so it is important for both the athlete and the everyday person. And then on the next page, page 10, we start talking about how to build your foundation. So how do you build your foundation then? So first, what we do is we use the 4 different types of physical activity that is identified by the CDC. And so building your foundation includes building your aerobic capacity, your balance, your flexibility, and then doing muscle strengthening and conditioning exercises. And then we break it down even further, so we go into aerobic activity. And then I just want to point out in this guide, as we go along, you'll see these little dots or these little sentences in red. If you pay attention to those are how we're going to start building your program, or how we're going to write the program at the end. And so for aerobic activity, this can also be called cardio or endurance. There's a lot of different names for it, but this is physical activity that uses the body's large muscles to move in a rhythmic manner for a certain length of time, usually longer than 10 minutes. And so this, causes a person to breathe harder, and their heart rate to increase. And then the examples are like walking, doing the elliptical, jogging, cycling, hiking, anything like that. And then the next one is muscle strengthening activity. And so muscle strengthening activity is just basically when your muscles work against force or weight. And it could be anything from like weightlifting or resistance bands, using your own body weight, things like that. And then, so again, I included some recommendations for how NASM would set up their programs for beginners. And so for a beginner, the goal is muscular endurance and stabilization, which is achieved by doing high repetitions with a light weight or resistance. And so there you have your breakdown. You'd want to do 12 to 20 repetitions for 1 to 3 sets. You would want to rest anywhere from 0 to 90 seconds after a rep or a set. And then you'd want to do, at least 2 times a week to build and maintain strength, or 3 to 5 times a week. And that would allow for a max strength increase. And then the next one is balance activity. And so balance activity is when you challenge your body's ability to stabilize against forces demanded of the body. It challenges and increases the body's core and strengthens the support muscles, joints, and ligaments in order to stabilize during movement. So having good balance and having strong movement coordination. Having good balance is having strong movement coordination, good posture, and the ability to adapt to constantly changing environments. And so again, the example would be like a high school athlete. They move from side to side, front to back, just different planes of motion. And then just for like your everyday person, if you if you trip over something, you step in a hole or anything like that, you just want to have good balance so it prevents you from injuring yourself. And so NASM also suggests that beginners use slow and controlled movements in order to condition all the muscles involved in the movement. So they suggest incorporating 1 to 4 exercises that improve balance, and then using a slow and controlled tempo of 4-2-1. And I will get into the meanings of repetition, sets, tempo, things like that in a couple of slides or a couple of pages. And then we go into flexibility training. And so flexibility activity is what increases your range of motion or your range of motion of the joints, and it improves posture and helps correct the muscle imbalances. And so for a beginner, there's different types of flexibility training, but I won't get into that. I don't get into that in the booklet because this is aimed for beginners. And so we focus on corrective flexibility. And so corrective flexibility uses both static stretching and self-myofascial release. And static stretching is lengthening a tight muscle to where it feels challenging, but you're not in pain. And then self-myofascial release is, I put that in here, is just a fancy name for self-massage. If you have knots in your body, you can use something like a tennis ball or a foam roller to iron out those knots. And then again, there's some recommendations in red there that tell you how long you should do each of those. And then on page 15, we get into like some of the definitions, just so that people aren't confused, or so that they have an idea of what everything means. And so again, repetitions is the amount of times you'll complete a single exercise. And then a set is completing a group of repetitions that you'll complete for each exercise. Rest is obviously the time that you won't be exercising and that you can use to recover so that you can complete either your next rep or your next set. And then tempo is the rhythm that you use when you're lifting, holding, and then lowering your resistance or force or weight, whatever you want to call it. And so the example that I set in there is like during a bench press. So you would basically, you're holding the weight and you're lowering it down to your chest. You're going down for 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold it for 1, 2 at your chest, and then you push back up for 1. Okay, and then on the next page, we go into breathing and more explanations of different types of concepts or terms or things that are people need to know in their when they're setting up their programs. I put in red just because I wanted people to remember this is not to hold your breath when you're lifting or doing anything, and then to exhale on exertion. So that's probably the most important thing you can remember when it comes to breathing. And then like full body workout, that's basically incorporating all your muscles throughout the entire body. A split routine is you can split your muscle groups up to be done on different days. So like for an example, you can do like lower body on one day, upper body on the next day, or like bodybuilders who will kind of like maybe do like a chest day or, you know, they do leg day or, you know, things like that. So, and then circuit training, you can set that up using both the full body or a split routine. And basically it's where you complete a set of exercises moving from one body part to the next without any rest until after completing the entire set of exercises or the series of exercises. And then for page 17, this is where we begin to design our program. So if we think about the concept or use the FIT principles, I'll just go over the FIT principles. So basically, FIT is F is the frequency. So we want to think about how often are we planning to work out. Intensity, how hard should we be working when we're working out? Time, how long should we be working out when we're, you know, doing our exercises or physical activity? And then type, what type of activities will I do, or what am I trying to do? And so if you look back at all of the red sentences, like I said before, it basically breaks it down and gives us the information for the frequency, the time, and the type. So just really basically, you know, if you're just trying to improve your health, you can use the CDC recommendations, which I included in there. And so like it says to do 150 to 300 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity. And so that's something that you can set in your program as, okay, I'm going to do, you know, 300 minutes and I'm going to divide it up by this amount of time, this many days a week, or whatever it is by doing this activity. The only thing that we did not cover right here is intensity. And so that's right here on the next slide. And this is page 18 of the guide. And so we give you 2 methods of learning how to assess your intensity during your exercise. And the first one is the talk test. Basically, you just monitor your activity, and then it should show you where you're working at just by what you're able to do. And then the second method is using your heart rate or your max heart rate, target heart rate, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, drawing a blank. So the second method, when you use your heart rate, basically what you want to do is you want to look, you want to find your pulse while you're working out. And so what you can do is you can count your pulse on your wrist for 30 seconds and then multiply it by 2. And then that will give you your beats per minute, and that would be how hard you're working. So that's how you can measure it. And then I'm going to go, these are the definitions. So like max heart rate is the maximum number of beats made by your heart in 1 minute of effort. And then the target heart rate is the number of beats per minute that reflect how fast your heart should be beating when you're doing physical activity. And then at the very bottom, I included just a note that some medications can affect your heart rate. So again, please check with your doctor when you're doing physical activity, just so you know where you should be working and if it's safe and that sort of stuff. And then page 20 and 21, this will help you set your intensity using your heart rate. So when you set your intensity, you use the age predicted maximum heart rate method, and it's really basic. It's 220 minus your age, that's your max heart rate. And then in order to find where you should be working your targets, you just multiply that max heart rate of 165 by your target percentages. So the CDC, sorry, hold on, identifies moderate intensity exercise as being anywhere from 50 to 70% of your max heart rate. And so I use that. This number is not right though. I edited it and then I forgot to change that part of it. And then vigorous activity, they recognize it as being from 70 to 85% of your max heart rate. And so again, you would just multiply it by the percentages and it would give you your, basically your percentages, the beats per minute that you should be working at. And then if that's too complicated, you can just move over to page 21, and that basically just gives you a generalized chart, and it's set up by increments of 5 years for age. So you just find something that's the closest to you. And so let's say we use this individual that's 55 years old. You know, their max heart rate here says 165. So if they're aiming to work between 50 and 70% of their max heart rate, they'd be anywhere between, their target heart rate would be anywhere between 82 and 115 beats per minute. So again, you just check your pulse for 30 seconds and multiply it by 2. And then that'll give you your beats per minute when you're doing your physical activity. And on page 22, we included a breakdown of the different types of heart rate zones or aerobic training zones. And so like zone 1 is low intensity. And this is usually used for like a warm up and a cool down for beginners. And it allows for a safe gradual increase or decrease of blood flow throughout the body. Or it helps to prepare the body for more intense work. And then zone 2 is the moderate intensity, and then it just goes on, and it gives you the different energy systems that it's using and the different health benefits and the changes that happen in your body during those different intensities where you're working out. And then intensity also would include like, well, if I'm going to do weights, or if I'm going to lift weights, or if I'm going to do any body weight exercises or anything like that. So we used 2 different methods again. One is just using your own comfort. Find a comfortable weight that you can use to perform the entire amount of repetitions and sets without compromising your form. So you really just want to make sure that, again, you're using lightweight, high repetition so that you can train your core and stabilize your muscles before moving on to something more heavy. And then we go into using the 1 rep max, and I'm not going to get into that, but you know, if somebody wants to take a look at the guide, or if they're going to use the guide and they have questions, they can reach out to me, or I'm hoping that people do choose to utilize this for their fitness centers or something, so they can at least coach anybody that comes into their centers on how to find all of these themselves. And so the NASM suggests that a beginner should use a weight that is 50 to 70% of their 1 rep max. So again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I know it's a lot of information. And it was really hard to try to compile all the information and make it like readable and understandable. And so this last part, this is where I ended. And so this is a live document. This is something that I'm working on. And I'm really looking and hoping for feedback from anybody, any of the partners. I just kind of want to make sure that people are able to understand it. So I'm hoping that I can just kind of plug in where they would find anywhere to set up their program. So, you know, like flexibility was on page something, and the time and the reps. Same thing for strength exercises, balance and core, their cardio or their warm up. And this is the place that they can set their program. And there will be blank templates included in the booklet. And so I'm also going to provide a daily workout log. So the program is something that they can set up, you know, weekly, monthly, daily, whatever it is they want to do. And then the daily workout log, if they want, they can just track their workouts every day. And then in addition to this, we want to develop an exercise dictionary that shows people how to perform different types of exercises using different exercise equipment, just so that they're able to use that to plug into their program right here where it says strength exercises. So they'll know their body part and stuff like that that they're working out and stuff. So and that's about it. I mean, there's a ton of information. Like I said, I'm looking for as much feedback as I can get. Is this something that people are going to actually want to use? Is it too complicated? Is it too easy? Is it not clear? Just so yeah. And if anybody has any questions, again, go ahead and feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. Like she said, if anyone has any questions, please feel free now to ask. If you don't have a microphone on your computer or your phone, you can always type into the chat box and I can read your question for you. I kind of had a question, Emily.
Yep.
I guess it's kind of 2 in 1. When do you think this resource will be available, and what is the best way for someone to get a hold of it or request it? How can they go about doing that?
It just depends. If I get